I've never understood the hate for Scream 3. I don't understand why this is looked at as the worst of the Scream series. I think Scream 4 and 5 have made me appreciate Scream 3 a lot more because I'm genuinely not a big fan of those films. For me, Scream 3, I actually find it a bit of a blast. I actually really like it. So every time I watch it, I get a familiar nostalgic feeling that I get with the first two Screams. I just really enjoy the film.
It was a simple game, Cotton. You should have told me where Sydney was. Now, you lose.
One of the things I like about Scream 3 is the fact that it's actually more of a comical film than Scream 1 and 2, more of a screwball film than Scream 1 and 2, but it's also very morbid and dark at the same time. You could say it has a bit of a tone problem, but I like having a really creepy scene. Like, there are really dark, horrible scenes, like when Sydney sees the ghost of her mother at the window, which always terrified me as a kid, or when Ghostface is messing with Sydney and he puts on the voice of her mother. That's really messed up stuff, and I really like how this film goes for it with the messed up, horrible kind of trauma that Sydney's going through. Everything was more horrible and morbid for Sydney. This really was the culmination of her pain. But at the same time, this is a really oddly humorous film. There's lots of black comedy, which Scream always had. But this kind of, 1 minute you're like creeped out, next minute you kind of have a smirk on your face. I like the mixture in this. Like how in Scream 3 we kind of focus on the actors on set making the film of Scream 2, which is something we didn't do in Scream 2. We don't see how the actors would probably be picked off by Ghostface, and that's what's happening here. The actors playing Gale, playing Dewey, playing Sydney, and playing the characters who were, you know, from the first film who have been killed in the real Stab 3 movie. I like that kind of duality in this. I like how Gale Weathers meets her Gale Weathers actress, and Dewey meets his actor, and Sydney meets her actor. It just gave me a little bit of a kick because they're very comedic, kind of opportunistic, horrible people really. And it's always driven me crazy how Woodsboro has just completely taken advantage of this horrific tragedy that happened to Sydney, and they're just making films of it and profiteering off it. Absolute set of bastards. They don't care at all, and these kids are just on there for a job, even though this was real murders. I've always found that in Woodsboro something must be in the water, because these people, it keeps happening, and these people, they couldn't give a shit.
Oh my god, listen, I know we've never met, and I don't mind you never returning my calls, but I have to tell you, after 2 films, I feel like I am in your mind.
Well, that would explain my constant headaches.
I think David Arquette and Courteney Cox have some great comedy back and forth in Scream 3. I think their relationship is just as bouncy and energetic and entertaining as ever. Their kind of back and forth rivalry but secret love for each other, you know, is a little bit more refined in this than Scream 2, because in Scream 2 they were falling in love. In this you find out it didn't actually work, and Gale got really, as she does, egomaniac and, you know, horrible to Dewey and rejected him, and they just have this playful rivalry in this, which I thought was really fun to watch.
Brace yourself, Gale. All of this is actually not about you.
Charm that shines through. I even like how they had the idea to include Randy. I would never have thought of this, the way they include him. Obviously he died tragically in Scream 2. I would never have thought of a way to bring him back like this. And the thing is, the way they bring him back is so much smarter than in other series how characters come back.
Here are some super trilogy rules. 1, you got a killer who's going to be superhuman. Stabbing him won't work, shooting him won't work. Basically in the third one you got to cryogenically freeze his head, decapitate him, or blow him up.
It really is about Sydney's mother in this. It really is about the full circle of how Sydney's mother made these bad choices, got into these situations and caused this entire thing. And you were really kept guessing who the killer is in this, and I'll get to that later in the video in case anyone hasn't seen Scream 3 in the world. There's actually people out there who haven't seen the Scream movies. Get it together, guys. And you wonder in your head, who is this Ghostface? Because, you know, taking out the fact that Scream 4 and 5 exist, this really felt like the last one, and it was really like, wow, who is this Ghostface? You're like, wow, it's happened again, because obviously Scream 4 and 5 didn't exist at this point, where everyone knows it's going to happen again, it keeps happening again, and people in Woodsboro are just becoming Ghostface for a laugh. But in this, it's like, you didn't expect it to happen again. You probably knew there was going to be a Scream 3, but in the context of the series, you're kind of shocked that it's happening again. And it is like a detective movie in this. You know, Gale is trying to work out who the killer is. Dewey is trying to work out who the killer is in a more detective fashion than in the other Scream movies. You know, they team up with a police officer in this, Detective Kincaid, and it becomes more procedural, it becomes more police driven. Obviously Sydney's just your blooming auntie in Scream 4 and 5, she just turns up for a laugh because she's missed Ghostface. Whereas in Scream 3, you feel so much for Sydney. She's had a horrible time of it, bless her, and she's had a terrible time. She's gone to live out in the woods by herself, got lots of security, got this and that. And you know, it's not like some Laurie Strode shit from the new Halloween. You understand why this woman would have done this. There's a real lost, sad look in Neve Campbell's Sydney in this. And I think Neve Campbell is great. I think this is her best performance as Sydney. I think you have the most sympathy for Sydney. I love her journey where she comes out of hiding and she goes with her friends. But she's so tortured by Ghostface in this. Ghostface gets the most personal in this. And we understand why when he's revealed. But Sydney keeps trying and she keeps fighting, but she's put through hell and your heart goes out to her. There are lots of little suspects in this. Obviously all the cast members from the Stab 3 set are basically all suspects until they obviously, whichever one of them gets killed. But there's an interesting suspect, Angelina in this, who's playing Sydney, and it's an interesting little scene where Sydney finds her in the bathroom with a Ghostface mask and with a knife, and it's like, what are you doing, love? And it would have been interesting to see this girl be Ghostface, who got obsessed with the character she's playing maybe. So you're scratching your head, wondering whether she will be Ghostface. And there's little characters in there, you know, even Detective Kincaid, you wonder whether he's Ghostface at times. It really is left open for who it could be. And the actual reveal for me is a real shock. I remember watching this on VHS as a kid. I was like, no fucking way. It's really a minor character. Roman, the film director, turns out to be Ghostface in this, and also turns out to be Sydney's brother. This is Roman, who's the director of Stab 3, played by Scott Foley. And you just don't ever think it's going to be him. Obviously he spends most of the film just going around looking like the angry video game nerd. He looks like the angry video game nerd. Every time I've seen James Rolfe, I just thought, that's the killer from Scream 3. Look, yes, it's forced, yes, it's contrived, but dear God, it's less contrived than what they come out with nowadays. This is a much better reveal than Scream 4 and 5. It was still somewhat believable because it still felt like the Scream universe. It still felt like this could have been what happened. And it felt personal, and I think Scott Foley did a good performance when he reveals himself to Sydney. I remember when he took the Ghostface mask off, I didn't even bloody recognise him because I was just used to seeing him with glasses. Like, you really forget about this character. He's very minor, and then he turns out to just be this absolute madman. The family thing's been done to death, but the little exchange that they have, explaining it all, I think was well written, was well delivered, and at least it didn't come across as phony. It was contrived, but it wasn't phony.
4 years ago, I actually tracked her down. Knocked at her door thinking she'd welcome me with open arms, but she had a new life and a new name, Maureen Prescott. You were the only child she claimed, Sydney. She shut me out in the cold forever. Her own son.
Roman Bridger, director.
And brother.
Yes, it is contrived, but you know what? The film is entertaining. The film has this great screwball feeling. It's very morbid and sick in areas and dark and takes chances. Sydney is awesome. You're really, really behind her and her ascension and her redemption. It's a great reveal of Ghostface. I think Scream 3 is a very inventive, creative and fun slasher movie, and it really doesn't get that reputation.
How do I know that this is you, Gale, not the killer?
Dewey, open the fucking door. It's me.
Don't Don't you think that's what the killer would say?
Let me know if you also agree that Scream 3 is underrated. If you don't agree, tell me why. If you do agree, tell me why. And what is your order of the Scream movies? What's your favourite Scream movie? All that good stuff, let me know in the comments below. Subscribe today to join the Movie Geek family. Thanks for watching once again, and I will see you guys in the next video.